Welcome to Guitar Technique Episode 9. In this episode, we'll be making a study of how to develop smooth and flowing legato technique. If you're not familiar with this guitar technique, it is the opposite of staccato. And as you may know, playing notes as staccato will mean that each note would be performed very short and very detached sounding. However, the opposite is true of legato. Playing notes as legato technique will mean that each note is performed in a way that produces a very smooth and connected, seamless flow. Now the result on guitar is going to tend to promote the application of a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs to produce this legato sound. So let's get this lesson started covering the smooth, connected results of applying legato technique on the guitar. All right, let's take a look at exercise number 1 here. I've got the development of just a single string legato. It's really just using 3 notes off of the 3rd string. It's being demonstrated from 6 to 7 to 9, and then you're going back. It's basically like an up and down portion of a scale run that you're just doing in one position on one string. It's a nice idea to just kind of get you started with this technique and start you flowing along with understanding how legato is going to operate. Now I'm going to start off here. I did it with some distortion there to open things up, but I'm going to start off here with just a clean channel sound and just demonstrate what's happening with the technique overall. I'm going to start by plucking with my guitar pick on that note that's at the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and then my other finger, my middle finger and small finger, are going to move upwards from there. And then I'm going to pull off. Those were done with hammer-ons. I'm going to pull off after that. And then I'm going to hammer on and pull off one last time. Now it's harder to do this with a clean channel sound, so what you may want to work on a little bit here is with a little bit of distortion on your amp, and that's going to make things a little bit easier because the sustain is going to go up. This is going to be a little bit more challenging yet, even if you only have an acoustic guitar, but you can still do this stuff on acoustic. It's just a lot more effort is going to be required, and the real technical aspect of this with the fretboard hand technique is to use the tip of the finger. So if you want to get a nice clean legato hammer on, you're going to have to use the very tip of the finger to be able to smack down onto the guitar string right at the point where you need it to be able to generate the cleanest and most effective tone. Now once you start getting some technique with this, you can move on from exercise 1A over to exercise 1B, which is still the same single string legato study, but I've made it a little bit more complex because I'm coming back and forth on those notes a little bit more than what I did in the first example. I'm going up them, back down, up again, and then finishing with that 6th and 7th fret portion. So let me add a little bit of distortion onto the amp so you can hear the crunchy side of it and a more impactful hammer-on effect. So you can tell with the distortion, it really cranks up the effect of the technique. It makes the technique a lot easier to do. Now, also something else you may want to keep in mind, when you look at different guitar players out there that are really using a lot of this stuff, 2 people that come to mind right away are Joe Satriani and Yngwie Malmsteen. Now, both those guys, they're almost always playing with distortion and overdrive, so they're having, way easier time with this. Plus, here's the other side of the coin on this. Those guys are using very thin guitar strings. I'm not 100% sure on Joe Satriani's strings. I think they're quite thin, probably 8s. Yngwie Malmsteen, though, I know for sure he's using 8s. And when you go to strings that thin, it really makes it easy. On top of everything else, Yngwie Malmsteen is using a scallop neck, which is a whole other world of technique on top of everything else. You have a very gentle touch with those scallop necks because it's not like you're pushing down on a fingerboard. You have really a gap, like a hollow gap there almost. So it's very unique, makes it really easy to do a lot of fast legato work. So, whether you're doing exercise 1A, which is just the ascending, descending with the spin on the last 2 notes, just like that. That's exercise 1A. Or exercise 1B, where you're putting the extra tones in. Here it is again. Whether you're doing the first one or the second one, put the time into being able to get them nice and smooth and all that. And I would probably say, your best bet is to probably start with distortion. And then once you have them pretty decent, then, you can start moving them around the neck into other locations as well. And you can take them to different strings. You can take it lower if you want, or other locations. So, move it around the fingerboard, do it in different spots, different places on the neck, and, over time, it's just going to feel easier and easier to do these techniques. Now, like I said too, if you have an extra guitar, maybe, something with a flat neck, maybe even like an Ibanez or something like that, take that guitar, put some really light guitar strings on it, and start working on this technique, because you're going to find that it's much easier to do this technique with very light guitar strings. I'm using pretty heavy strings. I've got the D'Addario Jazz Rock on this guitar, so the upper string, the high first string, is an 11, so they're pretty beefy, and I keep my action really high on my guitars because I like sort of a really deep tone, especially when I make some of the jazzy chords. So it makes it tougher to do legato. But, once you get the technique down, you can pretty much do it with any guitar setup. But I do want to stress the fact that, if you had a very flat radius neck, like an Ibanez or something, and if you did have very light gauge strings, it's going to make it definitely easier to do this. So anyway, let's wrap up exercise 1. We'll take a short break and then come back in the next video with exercise 2, where I want to move on to the development of doing this with multiple string sets. We started off here just on one guitar string, but I want to move through a couple strings and start showing you how you can cascade this idea of legato across other string sets. So we'll take a short break and come back in the next video clip with multi-string legato. That was an excerpt from the 9th lesson of my guitar technique course. The remainder of this lesson is available behind a paywall on my website at creativeguitarstudio.com, but I thought you'd enjoy seeing this segment, so I put it here on YouTube for you to get a better idea about what the guitar technique course has to offer. Now, if you want to subscribe to my website and gain access to this course, along with my introductory, intermediate, and advanced guitar programs, plus many other guitar courses on the website, there's loads of information there. Just head over to creativeguitarstudio.com, sign up for your free lifetime membership to get started. There's 30 free lessons there under the Quick Licks program, and then when you want more, when you want to get into the other lessons on the site, you can always upgrade to getting either your basic monthly, or you could go with the discounted yearly premium membership plan, which opens up everything, all access on the website. If you have any questions, you can reach me by phone or by email. Just click on the link in the YouTube description box under where it says Become a Member today. Smooth Jazz Chords introduces chord types that offer a very different sound from the chords that are used in almost every other style of music. The Smooth Jazz Chords video lesson is a 2-part course that demonstrates chord types that are used in the smooth jazz style. These chords are often referred to as triad over bass note chords, and the lesson demonstrates these chord shapes as well as their use using both diagrams and example progressions. Smooth Jazz Chords is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com. Thanks for watching part 1 of the lesson. Be sure to sign up for a membership at creativeguitarstudio.com to watch the remainder of this lesson, where we'll study multi-string application of legato along with performing legato using scales, both ascending and descending. Plus, as a member, you'll also be able to download the handout for this lesson along with many more professional guitar lessons.